Hey everyone, and welcome to another Deep Dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be diving into the world of populism.
Ooh.
You know the word. You've heard it on the news.
Right.
But today we're going way beyond the headlines to really get down to what it is,
Yeah.
where it came from, and why it matters even to you today.
Absolutely.
And to help us along in this journey, we've got some fascinating presentation slides
Yes.
packed with historical insights to really guide our exploration.
That's right. We are going to untangle this really complex idea of populism
Yeah.
and see how it's played out in history,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even spot some patterns
Right.
that can help us make sense of what's happening in the world right now.
So let's unpack this.
Okay.
What exactly is populism?
Right.
It's more than just a buzzword, right?
Exactly. Populism isn't just some fleeting political trend.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a long history and very specific characteristics.
Okay.
At its core, you can think of populism as a political approach
Okay.
that speaks directly to ordinary people, especially when they feel like their concerns are being ignored by those in power,
Right.
the elites.
So it's about giving a voice to the people who
Yeah.
feel left out of the conversation.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
When did this idea even pop up?
Well, the term itself, populism,
Right.
goes all the way back to the late 19th century,
Wow.
both in the United States
Okay.
and Russia.
Interesting.
And it often comes with a strong sense of nationalism and what's called nativism,
Okay.
which basically means prioritizing the interest of native-born citizens,
Got it.
often because of anxieties about immigration and cultural change.
Interesting.
And you'll often see populism emerge during tough times,
Okay.
economic hardship, rapid social change,
All right.
or when people feel like their values and way of life are under threat.
So there's a pattern here.
Yeah,
Times get tough, people feel unheard, and bam,
that's right.
populism emerges. It's like a pressure valve almost.
Exactly.
Now let's rewind the clock a bit
Okay,
and jump into a real-world example
let's do it.
from American history.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of the People's Party?
The People's Party, also known as the Populist Party,
Okay.
emerged in the U.S. back in 1891.
1891. Okay, so to set the scene for you,
Yeah.
imagine America just after the Civil War.
Right.
You've got rapid industrialization,
Yeah.
cities booming,
Mm-hmm.
but also farmers struggling with debt
Absolutely.
and laborers facing some pretty harsh working conditions.
Right.
So a lot of folks were feeling squeezed, like the system wasn't working for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had basically the Democrats and the Republicans,
Right.
and many felt like neither truly represented the struggles of everyday people
Exactly.
into the People's Party,
Yes.
right? So they aimed to represent
That's right.
those farmers and laborers who felt left behind,
Yes, they wanted to give a voice to those who felt unheard.
but they weren't just a group of angry protesters.
No, they weren't.
They had a sophisticated platform
That's right.
with specific economic and political reforms in mind.
Exactly.
Like, what were they actually hoping to change?
Oh, one of their big issues was the railroads.
Oh,
You see, railroads were the lifeblood of the economy back then, but they held immense power, often setting unfair rates that crippled farmers.
Right.
Populists saw this as a prime example of elites exploiting the common man
Yeah,
and pushed for government regulation of the railroads.
makes sense.
They also wanted the direct election of senators.
Okay.
Back then, senators were chosen by state legislatures,
Oh, wow.
not the people.
Interesting.
So this would make the government more accountable
Right.
to everyday citizens, they argued.
Makes sense.
And perhaps most famously, they advocated for free silver.
Wait, free silver.
Yes.
That sounds almost too good to be true.
Right.
What's the catch?
Well,
Is the government just going to start handing out shiny coins?
it wasn't quite that simple.
Okay.
This is where things get juicy. It was a debate over the very nature of money itself. At the time, the U.S. was on the gold standard,
Okay.
meaning our currency was directly linked to the amount of gold the government held.
Right.
Imagine the economy is like a balloon.
Okay.
The gold standard is like having a really strong, small balloon.
Okay.
It's stable,
Mm-hmm.
but it can't expand much.
Yeah, okay, I'm picturing that.
Yeah,
So what was the problem with a strong, small balloon economy?
right.
Why were the populists calling for free silver?
Well, for farmers and those struggling with debt,
Hmm.
the gold standard felt like a straitjacket.
Oh,
They argued that it kept the money supply too tight,
okay.
making it hard to pay off debts and get ahead.
Right.
Free silver,
Mhm.
making silver legal tender, alongside gold
Okay.
would be like switching to a bigger, more flexible balloon.
Oh, I see.
It would increase the money supply,
Right.
potentially raise crop prices,
Okay.
and make life a bit easier for them.
So
Yeah.
that free silver idea that was like their
Yeah.
big solution.
It was a key part of their platform.
To try to fix this system that they
Exactly.
was rigged against them.
That's right.
But of course there were those who preferred that strong
Right.
small balloon.
Exactly. I bet those wealthy elites and bankers weren't too keen on having their wealth potentially diluted by all that extra silver floating around.
Right, exactly. They
Yeah.
feared that free silver would lead to inflation.
Yes.
Prices going up,
Yeah.
the value of their money going down.
Absolutely.
It was a real clash of economic philosophies and interests.
It was a battle of ideologies for sure.
So this free silver debate was about way more than just shiny coins.
It went much deeper than that.
It reflected those deep societal divisions,
Yeah.
anxieties about the economy, and who gets to benefit from it.
That's right.
It's amazing how those same anxieties still resonate today.
Absolutely. They're still very relevant.
But before we move on, you mentioned deflation earlier.
Right.
How did that fit into this whole debate?
Well, deflation is the flip side of inflation.
Okay.
A sustained decrease in the general price level of goods and services.
All right.
While it might sound good at first, like, hey, your money buys more.
Right. Everything's on sale.
Exactly. But it can actually throw a wrench into the whole economic engine,
Okay.
leading to unemployment and
Yeah.
stagnation.
Oh, so it's like everything is on sale, but nobody's buying because nobody has a job.
Precisely.
That makes the gold standard debate even more intense.
It does.
It's like choosing between two potential economic evils.
Right. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
And this is a great example of how economic anxieties can fuel these populist movements.
Yeah, absolutely. They play a major role.
So the People's Party ultimately faded away, right?
They did.
Why did they manage to stick around and achieve their goals?
Well, despite gaining quite a bit of support,
Yeah.
especially in the South and Midwest,
Mm-hmm.
the People's Party eventually declined in the early 20th century.
Okay.
Internal divisions played a part, as did their failure to achieve major goals like enacting free silver.
So those yearnings for change, for a system that felt more fair,
Yeah.
those didn't just vanish, did they?
No, they didn't.
Did any other groups pick up that populist torch, so to speak?
Absolutely. Around the same time, another group emerged, also fighting for the common person, but with a slightly different approach.
Okay.
The American Socialist Party.
Okay, let's dive into that.
Let's do it.
What was their vision for America?
Founded in 1901 by Eugene V. Debs,
Okay.
a prominent labor leader,
Mm-hmm.
the American Socialist Party had a two-pronged approach.
Okay.
They pushed for immediate reforms,
Yep.
things like public ownership of utilities and railroads,
Right.
measures that would directly benefit working people.
So taking those essential services
Right.
and putting them in the hands of the people rather than private companies
Exactly.
makes sense. What about their long-term goals?
Well, their long-term vision was even more radical.
Okay.
Worker control of production. They wanted to reshape the entire economic system,
Yeah.
shifting power from the capitalists to the workers.
So they were playing the long game.
They were aiming for systemic change.
Did they gain any traction with those ideas?
They actually did. They reached their peak in the 1912 election
Okay.
when Eugene V. Debs ran for president
Okay.
and got a surprising 6% of the popular vote.
Wow.
Not bad for a party advocating for such a fundamental shift in how the economy works.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was a significant showing.
But like the People's Party,
Mm-hmm.
they eventually declined.
They did.
What were some of the challenges they faced?
Well, World War I was a turning point.
Okay.
They faced government repression due to their anti-war stance,
Right.
and internal divisions weakened the party.
Mhm.
They also had to contend with the rise of other progressive movements offering alternative reform agendas.
So it seems like even though these specific movements come and go,
Yeah.
those core populist themes,
Mm-hmm.
economic anxieties feeling unheard, a desire for a more responsive system,
Absolutely.
those keep popping up throughout history.
They do. It's a recurring pattern.
And it's crucial to understand that populism doesn't just disappear without a trace.
No, it doesn't.
It can have a lasting impact on a society,
Exactly.
both in the political realm and the economy.
It leaves its mark.
Let's talk about those impacts.
Okay.
How exactly can these populist movements create ripple effects that we still feel today?
Well, on the political side,
Okay.
populist leaders are often very good at pointing fingers at the establishment, at those in power.
Yeah.
They might propose sweeping changes to the political system,
Right.
which can be a catalyst for positive change,
Okay.
but it also comes with some risks.
So that's like a double-edged sword.
It can be.
What kind of risks are we talking about here?
One risk is increased political polarization.
Okay.
Populism can divide people into opposing camps,
Right.
making it much harder to find common ground and compromise.
So even though they're trying to give a voice to the people,
Yeah.
they might end up undermining the very systems that allow for those voices to be heard.
It's a bit of a paradox.
That's pretty ironic.
It is.
And the rise of populism can also shake up those traditional political parties,
Absolutely.
disrupting the existing power structure,
Mm.
which can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on the context.
It depends on the specific circumstances.
Okay, so politically, it's clear that populism can really shake things up,
It can definitely disrupt the status quo.
but not always in a good way.
That's true.
What about economically?
Okay.
How can these movements impact our wallets?
Populist policies often involve increased government spending
Okay.
and, as a result, larger deficits.
Mm-hmm.
Those promises to help specific groups or provide economic relief,
Right.
those often come with a hefty price tag.
It's like those free silver advocates wanting the government to increase the money supply
Yeah.
to help farmers and debtors.
Exactly.
Sounds good in theory, but and as those wealthy elites feared back then,
Right.
increasing the money supply can lead to inflation.
That's a risk.
Remember that big, more flexible balloon?
I do.
Well, too much air and it might just burst.
That's the danger.
Populism can also create uncertainty for businesses,
Yeah.
making them hesitant to invest and grow, which can slow down the whole economy.
Right. It can stifle economic growth.
So the economic impact of populism is kind of a mixed bag.
It can be.
It might help some folks in the short term,
Yeah.
but there could be long-term consequences that we all end up dealing with.
That's a very important point to consider.
And remember, those populist policies are often designed to benefit specific groups,
That's right.
which means that inevitably
Yeah.
others might end up worse off.
Exactly. There are winners and losers.
Can you give us an example of how that might play out?
Think about trade protectionism.
Okay.
It's a classic populist policy, slapping tariffs on imported goods
Right.
to protect domestic industries and jobs.
Yeah, that sounds like a win for those specific workers and industries.
It can be in the short term.
But there's always but isn't there?
Often there is.
While it might seem like a good idea in the short term, trade protectionism can lead to higher prices for consumers
That's right.
and fewer choices in the marketplace.
Exactly.
You might save a few jobs in one industry,
Yeah.
but you might end up costing consumers more money across the board,
Right.
which hurts everyone in the long run.
It can have broader negative consequences.
So it's like putting a Band-Aid on a bigger systemic problem.
It's a temporary fix that doesn't address the root cause.
But if populism can be so powerful and appealing,
Mm-hmm.
why does it so often fade away?
Right.
What causes these movements to eventually lose steam? It seems like history is full of these populist movements
Yeah.
flaring up and then dying down.
Right.
Is it just a matter of time before they inevitably resurface?
Well, one of the biggest factors is economic prosperity.
Okay.
When times are good and people are generally feeling secure, they're less likely to feel like the system is rigged against them.
Yeah, makes sense. People are less likely to be drawn to radical ideas if they feel like things are working for them.
Exactly.
Were there any other factors that contributed to the decline of those earlier populist movements we discussed?
Yes. The rise of new institutions and policies also played a role.
Go ahead.
Think about the creation of the Federal Reserve in the U.S. back in 1913.
Right.
This was a direct response to those anxieties about banking and finance
Right.
that fueled the populist movement. It was
Yeah.
like the government saying, hey, we hear you,
Yeah.
and we're trying to create a system that's more stable and responsive to the needs of the economy.
So instead of relying on that rigid gold standard,
Right.
they created a more flexible system that could adapt to changing economic conditions.
Exactly.
Clever. What about the rise of progressivism?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't that also offer a different path for those seeking change?
Absolutely. The progressive movement offered a different flavor of reform, one that focused on addressing social and economic problems through government regulation and social welfare programs.
Okay.
It appealed to many who had previously been drawn to populist ideas,
Right.
but were looking for a more pragmatic approach.
So it's like populism planted the seeds of discontent,
Yeah.
and then these other movements came along and offered different ways to address those underlying issues.
That's a good way to put it.
But even if those specific movements faded,
Right.
the core issues that fueled them,
Yeah.
those economic anxieties, feelings of being ignored by the elites,
Mm-hmm.
those haven't gone away, have they?
You hit the nail on the head. While specific populist movements might come and go,
Right.
those underlying conditions that give rise to them can reemerge at any time.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Those seeds of populism are always there,
Mm-hmm.
lying dormant in the soil of society,
Okay.
just waiting for the right conditions to sprout.
So we're seeing history rhyme, not repeat.
In a way, yes.
It's like we've got this playbook of populist themes that keep playing out in different forms throughout history and even today.
Yeah, it's a recurring pattern.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From those shiny silver coins
Right.
to economic anxieties to the potential pitfalls of populism.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. And remember, we've only scratched the surface here.
That's true.
Populism is a vast and complex topic
Mm-hmm.
with deep roots and far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely.
There's so much more to explore.
There is.
And that's the beauty of these deep dives.
Yeah.
We get to unpack these complex ideas together
Right.
and gain a new perspective on the world around us.
It's all about expanding our understanding.
But it doesn't have to end here.
No, it doesn't.
This deep dive is just the beginning of your exploration.
That's right.
Use what you've learned today to start asking questions about the world around you.
Yeah, be curious.
Look at the political landscape,
Mm-hmm.
the economic debates happening right now.
Absolutely.
Can you spot any of those populist themes we discussed?
Good question.
Are those anxieties and frustrations being addressed responsibly?
Those are questions worth pondering.
It's like we need to find that spot,
Yeah.
acknowledging the legitimate concerns that drive populism
Mm.
while also guarding against those potential negative consequences we talked about.
Exactly. Finding that balance is crucial.
And that's where you come in, understanding populism isn't just about memorizing historical facts and figures.
Right.
It's about applying that knowledge to the world around you.
That's the key.
Think about those questions we just posed.
Mm-hmm.
They're your invitation to keep exploring,
Keep learning.
and keep engaging in those crucial conversations.
Yeah, stay engaged.
Because remember, populism isn't just a relic of the past.
No, it's not.
It's a force that continues to shape our present
Absolutely.
and will undoubtedly influence our future.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into populism,
Mm-hmm.
we encourage you to keep those questions coming
Keep those discussions going.
and keep diving deep into the world of ideas.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration.
Yeah, it was a pleasure diving in with you all.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of populism. Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep exploring